All right, test. All right, we're good. All right, what's up, everyone? This is demo 6 for Intro to Backend now. This is like the third to last one. After this, we've got 2 more weeks of actual class, I believe. And yeah, so this demo is kind of gonna build off of what I did or what I did last time in terms of creating the VM instance. So we're gonna review that real quick. So again, please claim the Google Cloud credits from the ed post because that's going to be essential for, I guess, this demo and also PA6. So if you haven't done that already, please do so. And if you have any issues with like billing and stuff, feel free to ask us after class. And yeah, so we're going to go over again how to like create a VM instance. So we see this button over here. So we're just going to click over here, create VM instance. We're in this project that we created last time, Demo 6 Network. Yeah, so to create this VM instance, we'll just name this Demo 6. Put the region to, what do you use? Just D6. We could put the region as Northern Virginia since it's closest to New York. And then the next thing we need to do is go to this machine type and we'll put this as small. The main difference again between these three options is that medium will give you a higher price, whereas if you go like micro, it's going to give you like a smaller monthly estimate if it actually starts loading. Yeah, so it's $7.99. We're going to go with small because our app is pretty small. And then the next thing we're going to want to change is the boot disk. The default is Debian, which is kind of like a subversion of Linux, but we're going to want to change this to Ubuntu over here because I guess it's used in industry a lot and we're going to be using it today. So we're just going to click that, select, and then we're gonna allow HTTP traffic so that we can actually send requests to like the app that we're eventually going to run. And I know last time I did something with the networking, with the network stuff. I think that should just default to okay. So with that, we'll create it. And so now we have this new, I guess, VM instance D6. And it takes a second for, I guess, the status to become green. So just wait a little bit on that. So yeah. So now we see this like SSH button over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna SSH into our machine. This means that we're going to SSH into our server machine, and this means that we're kind of messing around within this VM instance, and we're kind of making commands in it as if it's the computer that we're using. So basically, this VM instance, like the virtual machine, it's like you're kind of running a computer on a computer in a sense. So when you SSH into this VM, you can like make commands in like this theoretical computer that you're like messing around on. And so this is going to allow us to like run our app. So we're going to click this over here. We're going to SSH into it. Takes a while for it to load. Yeah, so if we hit SSH, there should be a new terminal that pops up in a second. And it says SSH in browser, which is good. And then once it finishes loading, there will be a terminal. So we click authorize here. There'll be a terminal that looks really similar to the terminal that we've been using previously in class. And so that's it right here. And so now that we have this terminal, we're going to go back to Docker Hub for a second. And we're going to kind of create an image and push it to Docker Hub. So here, I guess we have our code from demo 5. Yeah, so remember the code to build an image, okay, before building the image, we're going to want to create a repository in Docker Hub. So if we go to hub.docker.com, it'll ask you to log in. So make sure like you have a Docker Hub account. And what Docker Hub basically is, it's similar to GitHub, but for Docker images. So like in GitHub, you can see like other people's code and you can like clone it onto your like whatever repository or whatever like directories you have and you can run it. The same thing with Docker Hub. People push images publicly that you can then pull from Docker Hub and then you'll be able to run. So we see that these are the repositories that I've had in previous years, like when I took the course. So we're just going to create a repository over here and let's just name it demo 6. and we don't need a description, and make sure to make it public. So we're going to create that. And so now we have, I guess, a repository, but it has nothing in it, right? So now we want to push an image, I guess, into our new repository. So this command over here is like what the push like command is going to look like when we like push our image to Docker Hub. So if we go back to our code, the first thing we need to do is actually build our image. And so the command for that is Docker build. And then if you have an M1 or M2 Mac, there might be some inconsistencies between the environment that you built your app in locally and the environment that like the Google Cloud Server uses. So we're just going to have this flag over here that says platform Linux and AMD 64. And then after this flag, we'll have -t, and then I guess your Docker Hub username. So mine is akmatchev, and then the name of the repository that we just created, so demo 6. And then at the end, we have to have a dot at the end to indicate that we want all of these files to be part of our image. So if we hit that, the image is going to start building, and unfortunately it like takes 15-20 seconds for it to build. So yeah. Okay, there we go. That took kind of long. All right, so now that we have our image, we're next going to push this image onto Docker Hub. So we're going to do Docker push, and then I guess the name of like our Docker Hub username. So for me, it'd be akmatchev, and then the name of our repository. So that's just going to be demo 6. And if we do that, we see that we're pushing this image onto our repository over here. And so once that's pushed, we can go back to Docker Hub, and we see that our last push is a few seconds ago. If we reload this, we see that we have this new image. And one thing about what this tag means is that you can tag your image when you like create a Docker image. So like in your build command, let me go to this real quick. There you go. So I guess when you build, I guess a Docker image, so we had this command over here. What you can do is after this demo 6 over here, you can type in a colon and then name it like have a tag over here. So like it's a version 1.0.0. And so if you like run this command over here, then this is going to turn out as version 1.1.0. If you don't have, I guess, a tag, so like the way we did it, then the latest like version of your image is just going to be tagged as latest. And if you push like multiple of these images, then the latest, I guess, image is going to have the tag of latest, and then all the previous images are not going to have any tags, if that makes any sense. So that's what this tag thing means over here. So now that we have, I guess, our image pushed onto Docker Hub, next thing we're going to want to do is go to okay, yeah. So now we go back to our terminal over here. So this virtual machine that we just created, it kind of has nothing on it, right? So it doesn't have Docker like installed. So if we want to like use Docker for this VM, we're gonna have to install it. So if you go to the backend course, and go to like chapter 6 and go to demo, there are these two links over here. And so if we open them in new tabs, they give us the commands that we can run in our VM to kind of install like Docker. So this link over here installs Docker, and this one installs Docker Compose, which you're going to use to like run the container. So I guess what we have to do now is just copy and paste like all of these commands up to this one over here. So yeah, so we have to go over here and just kind of run these commands so that Docker is installed. And then anytime it says yes or no, just hit yes, because you actually want it to be installed. So while I'm doing this, does anyone have any questions? Or no? Yeah.
In this code, and you put, and you put like something like what, oh yeah, you did Linux slash and then like.
Oh, AMD 64. That's that's not my net ID. It's just like a like syntax that you need for that flag. So it's I think double hyphen platform, then space Linux slash AMD 64. That's just like the flag. Yeah. Okay. So if we look at this, I guess if we look at the instructions, we see that if Docker is installed correctly, that we have this output over here. So if we go over here and we scroll up, we see that this kind of matches like what that said. So that means we're on the right track. And then the last command we need to run, I guess, for installing Docker is this thing over here, and that'll actually like install Docker CE. So run that and then click yes. And then this again, like takes a while. So bear with me. So now we installed Docker. We have to install Docker Compose now. So it's just these three commands. It doesn't take too long. So this and that. And run that. And so we see that our Docker Compose version is this. So that means it was successfully installed. So now that we have like Docker installed on here, the next thing we're going to want to do is pull the image that we just pushed onto our Docker Hub repository. So the command for that is just going to be sudo. And for all these commands in here, when you're doing like sudo Docker pull or sudo Docker compose, you always have to have this sudo in front or else you're going to get some errors. So we're going to do sudo Docker pull, and then it's going to be the username of like my Docker Hub account's AK Matchev, and then demo6 is the name of the repository. And so that's going to, I guess, pull the Docker image. Okay. And then after we've done that, to actually construct the container and actually run the live instance of it, we do sudo docker compose up and then slash for no configuration file. I forgot to so before running it, we have to have actually a Docker Compose file before we actually run this command. So what we have to do is we have to create, I guess, a Docker Compose file. And so to do that, we do vim and then just Docker Compose dot YML. And so this is going to create a Docker Compose file like within the browser. So for this file, what you do is you just go to like what we have for the starter code. Just copy whatever is in here and paste this in here. And make sure that this port over here, make sure you have it as 80, like in front, because I was running into some errors when testing this out. So make sure it's 80. And then, yeah, so to exit Vim, you press escape and then colon WQ. And so that kind of like exits the text editor. So then if you hit enter, and if we do sudo docker ps, or we see that we have like a Docker Compose over here. And so now if we run um, Docker Compose up, we should be able to run, I guess, our file. And so hopefully, if we go back to our VM instances, so now that our app is running, we see that we have this internal IP and our external IP. So theoretically, if we click this external IP, this is kind of like the URL to like, I guess that our app is running on. So if we click it, hopefully, okay, so this might be normal. If we have a tag of 80 over here, it should run, hopefully. Yeah. That's 80 to 5,000. 8,000, yeah. Um, so I'm getting a port error over here, which I was getting a lot like previously. So it looks like those commands that I ran before, it kind of like checks what port it's running on. So I'm gonna change the port over here to 8,000 and see if this makes a difference. Um, okay. Okay. Um, Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, you set up an
Okay. Oh, wait, yeah, okay. There's no .env file. I deleted all of it.
search for
Mhm.
the image that you push.
This one. Pretty sure I pulled demo
New
6.
Docker PS. It says demo 6/test.
Where?
That's the
Oh,
image.
what?
So
Okay.
compose file.
Wait, I pulled the wrong image then.
Just change your compose file.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, my bad. So I had a typo in my Docker Compose file from I guess when I was testing it. So yeah. So anyway, when you run it on this URL, we see that we have kind of like an empty like base endpoint over here. So if we go to like Postman, if we like have this URL, Control C, and then go over here and like try and add like a task to it. So let's say like task 1, we send it in. So what? Yeah, if we send it in, we see like it, I guess, return a success response. So if we go over here and like refresh the page, we see there was like a new task created over here. So I guess we can like spam this with like a bunch of tasks. So like, I don't know, that, and then I'll go send that in. Okay. So now we see that we have like a bunch of tasks in here. But the base endpoint was kind of weird because like this is our base endpoint, right? And then if we type in like tasks, again, this is going to be the same thing. So I guess one thing we should want to do is kind of like change this base endpoint. So if we go over here, I guess in our app.py, we see that there's nothing in the base endpoint. So we can define like a function, I guess base, and then just like print or return a world. And so now that we've changed like our code, we have to create a new image for that. So what we do here is go back to the command that we ran for that. Should be okay, it would be this one. Okay, so we run this, is building our new image. And then yeah. So then after we built it, we have to push it. So just do this. And so now that it's pushed, if we go back to our Docker hub, we see that our last push was indeed a few seconds ago. So then now that we've pushed it, we have to pull it again on like our SSH. So we would do sudo docker pull, and then we can match it demo 6. And then we could just put the latest tag here as like a guarantee that we're going to pull the latest image that we've pushed. So if we run this, we get this image, and then if we run it, we should see that the base endpoint has indeed changed to hello world. So this is good that we were able to change it, but the problem is that all this data got deleted. So if we go back to tasks, all of our data got deleted, and that's really not good, because if you like, it's not good to like have your data deleted every time you make a small change. So what we're going to introduce next is something called Docker volumes. And so Docker volumes kind of allow for consistency and remembrance of information, so that when you do change like your database structure or anything like that, all of your information will be remembered. So to do this, when we were kind of like running our app.py in previous like demos, whenever you run it, you get this like instance folder over here, right? And within here is this thing called todo.db. And this thing kind of like stores all the information that's like within your database, right? So the logical thing here is that we want to create something within like our VM or virtual machine that kind of like mimics todo.db, right? So I guess the natural thing to do is to create a file todo.db within like our terminal over here. And so to do that, we could just do touch todo.db sudo. Oh. Okay, and then if we do ls, we see that we have our Docker compose and we have our todo.db. So then next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change our Docker compose or our YAML file, or Docker compose YAML file, to look something like this. So go insert. So we're going to add this thing called volumes. And then what this is going to be, we're going to have this kind of like command that I'll explain here in a second. So it's going to be home m99.db, and then app, and so we exit out of this. So that thing basically meant was that it was basically mapping like our directory in our local like code base to like a directory within like the SSH thing, right? So if we look at if we go back to over here, we see that this home, or this AKM99 thing, this is the string that came after that came before this like at thing over here. And so this home AKM99 kind of directs like this VM to like the todo.db file that's like within here. And then the user app thing. So if we go back over here, if we do wd, okay, I think the explanation for the user app, that's the working directory, I guess, in our Docker file. Oh yeah, so it's right here. So that's our working directory over here. So it's user app, and then our todo.db file is like within like our working directory, right? So this is why like we have this. So like in other words, it's basically mapping like our todo.db file in here to the file that we just created in here, if that makes somewhat sense. So then after this, we're gonna want to add our 2.db to our Docker ignore over here. Yeah. And then since we just like edited our Docker ignore file, we're gonna want to push like a new image. So we're gonna build it again. Does anyone have any questions? Because that was like very all over the place. So yeah. So now that it's built, we need to push it to our repository. And then after that, we need to pull it over here. So sudo docker pull. So it pulls the image. And so if we now run it, oh, I forgot the slash in front of user. Okay. So if we go back to our tasks over here, we see that we haven't inserted anything. So I guess to show like the functionality of volumes, we're gonna insert some tasks over here. So like do algo, go home, sleep. And so we have all these tasks over here, right? So theoretically, if we sudo docker compose down, which kind of like stops running our file, and then if we run it again, hopefully all this data should be preserved so that we don't have to enter it again. Okay, so if we go back, goes up, hopefully should be preserved. Yeah. So like when I refreshed it, it stayed the same. It didn't go to like an empty like tasks object. So that's a good sign that the volumes are actually working. So the last thing we're going to do is environmental variables. So I guess like we talked about it in the previous lecture, but to include environmental variables within this, we would have to have a .env file within our code base. They're going to have .env, and then we're going to have some variable name like name, and then we'll say my name is Tony. So now that we have this, we're going to implement this in our app.py. First, you're going to want this import OS to actually like to be able to like reference these environmental variables. So we're going to go over here and we're going to say hello plus os dot environ dot get, and then we're going to get the variable called name. So what this basically does is if this works right, it should say hello and then my name like within this URL over here. So there's one more thing we need to do. In our Docker ignore, we want to or not include our environmental variables so that like we don't want anyone to like see like our private information, right? Because our environmental variables are kind of like secret information. So we're gonna have this over here. And then the last thing is we're gonna have env file, and that's just gonna be .env. Yeah. So now that we have like an env file over here, we don't actually have one in our like SSH server. So we're going to create an env file over here. So we're going to do vim.env, and that opens the text editor to create like a .env file. So again, we're just going to have name equals 20, and that'll be it for that. So now that everything's good, we have to again like build another image. So I'm gonna build it. This will take some time. Yeah, we're gonna build, push, and then pull it on here. And then hopefully it should say something different over here for the base endpoint, because our base endpoint is currently this, right? So yeah. Does anyone have any questions about like what I did for the environmental variables or no? Now that's done, we push it to our repository. Now we go back to our terminal over here and we pull the image. So Docker pull. So we see that, and then we compose up and run this. Hopefully it'll run. Okay. So if we go over here and refresh, okay. CR type is not. Let's get this string stuff.
Is that the right one?
Yeah, should be.
What's the? What did you include that in this time?
Yeah. Oh shoot, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the last thing I forgot to do, you have to include like the env file within this like Docker compose file. So to do that, we're just gonna do env file. Yeah, is just our .env. So that should be it for that. And then hopefully running it again, we should get the right output. Okay. Okay, so we see that it says hello, Tony. So that means the environmental variable was indeed good. So now, before we end this demo, since this thing is deployed on Google Cloud, right? Theoretically, y'all should be able to access this as well. So if you like type in this thing in the URL, and then if you go into Postman and you put this in the URL along with /tasks over here, if you have this URL, and theoretically any one of y'all can like post like a task, and then it should show up on like the URL over here. So yeah. So
Oh, I didn't think so.
Hmm. Okay, so one was just posted. Whoever did that, good job. And yeah, you can just like spam it. I don't really care, but yeah. So that's the cool thing about Google Cloud is that now any one of y'all can post a task over here and it's going to set. Yeah, so another task came in. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that ends the demo off today. Thank y'all for bearing with me because this was kind of a buggy one. But yeah, I won't be here on Monday, so I hope all of y'all have a good Thanksgiving break. And yeah, let's move on to the Kahoot.